We all want our devices to be faster, more powerful, right? But the biggest roadblock, slowing everything down, it's probably not what you think. It's not just about making things smaller. It's this tiny, incredibly persistent problem hidden deep inside every single microchip. A problem that's, well, it's literally sticky. So why can't we just build the perfect, ultra-fast microchip? What's the holdup? A huge part of the answer is this strange phenomenon happening at the atomic level called Fermi level pinning. And trust me, it's one of the most stubborn challenges in all of modern electronics.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. We'll start with a simple way to picture what pinning even means. Then we'll get into the real science, see why it's such a massive deal for our tech, and finally, we'll look at how scientists are trying to fight back.
So first things first, what exactly is Fermi level pinning? To really get our heads around this, let's start with a simple analogy that will hopefully make the whole concept stick. Okay, first, picture the perfect scenario. You've got a ball on a perfectly smooth hill. You can push that ball up, you can let it roll down, and its position changes exactly how you'd expect. You have total, complete control. In the world of electronics, this is the absolute dream. But now let's throw a wrench in the works. What if there's a patch of sticky mud somewhere on that hill? All of a sudden, your ball gets stuck. It doesn't matter how hard you push or pull, it's pinned in place. And that right there, that's the core of the problem we're talking about. And here is how that simple analogy translates directly into the physics of semiconductors. The ball's position on that hill, that's what scientists call the Fermi level. And that really frustrating sticky patch, in the real world, that's caused by tiny microscopic imperfections on the surface of the material. Okay, with that analogy in our back pocket, let's leave the hill behind and dig into the actual science. It's time to climb what we call the electron energy ladder and properly define this super important concept, the Fermi level. So you can think of the Fermi level as a kind of waterline for electrons inside a material. Everything below this line, all the electron states, they're full. Everything above the line, they're empty. The position of this waterline is absolutely everything. It's what determines if a material will act like a conductor and let electricity flow, or act like an insulator and stop it dead in its tracks. And here's the kicker. In a perfect world, engineers can completely control this waterline. They can move it up or down by adding specific impurities, that's a process called doping, or just by applying a voltage. This control is the whole game. It's what makes transistors switch on and off. But this is where the ideal world smacks right into reality. At that supercritical point where metal touches a semiconductor, that perfect control we were just talking about, well, it just vanishes. And that brings us to the official definition. Fermi level pinning is exactly what it sounds like. That Fermi level gets stuck or pinned at one specific energy level right there at the interface. And it stubbornly resists any, and I mean any, attempts by engineers to move it. This really shows you what goes wrong. Ideally, an engineer could pick different metals to create different energy barriers, basically fine-tuning a device for perfect performance. But with pinning, that barrier's just stuck. It's controlled by the flaws in the semiconductor, not by the engineer's careful design. All that creative control is just gone. So what's causing this atomic-scale sticky patch anyway? Well, it's all about tiny imperfections. You've got what are called dangling bonds, which are basically unhappy atoms at the surface looking for a partner that isn't there. These spots, along with other little defects, create these unwanted energy levels that act like traps, grabbing onto electrons and locking that Fermi level right in place. Okay, that's the physics of it. But why should you care about any of this? Because this isn't some abstract lab problem. It has very real, very tangible consequences for the devices that you and I use every single day. The biggest problem, really, is this massive loss of flexibility. Because that energy barrier for electrons is stuck in one place, engineers lose one of their most critical tools for designing better and better devices. It's kind of like telling a master chef that all their stove burners are now permanently stuck on medium heat. And this has a direct impact on our lives. It's the thing that limits the performance of the billions of transistors inside our computer's CPUs. It makes things like solar cells and LEDs less efficient. And it's just a huge, frustrating roadblock for pretty much all next-generation semiconductor technologies. But hey, it is not all bad news. This isn't some unbreakable law of physics. Scientists and engineers all over the world are on a quest, and they're actively working on some really brilliant ways to unpin the system and take back that control. And this is a huge focus for researchers. I mean, for decades now, scientists have been coming up with all sorts of clever strategies to get around Fermi-level pinning, and they're making some really incredible progress.
The strategies usually fall into two main camps. The first one is called passivation. You can think of this like cleaning and polishing the surface at an atomic level to get rid of those sticky, dangling bonds. The other path is insulation. Here, researchers slip in an incredibly thin insulating layer to physically separate the metal and the semiconductor, which stops them from interacting and creating those pesky traps in the first place.
So what's the big takeaway here?
It's that understanding and managing this invisible atomic scale problem is one of the single most important challenges in modern tech. Defeating Fermi-level pinning is basically the key that's going to unlock the next generation of more powerful, more efficient electronics for all of us.
And that really brings us to our final thought. This work is happening in labs right now. So the real question to think about is this. As we finally learn how to unpin the system and give engineers back their complete toolkit, what incredible new technologies, the ones we can't even imagine yet, are suddenly going to become possible?